Thank you. Okay. Last talk. I hope you guys still have some energy to bear with me. I'm Rui Carneiro, and I'm here today to talk to you on how to build and maintain a large-scale application. This is not a Bible. This is how we done at Blip, and feel free to say that everything I'm saying here is stupid and you have a better way to do it. What is Blip? Blip is a company from Porto. We are currently more than 200 guys and girls. Currently we are working exclusively for Betfair, that is a betting company from UK. So for you have a big picture from the business, we have one of the top 3 largest Oracle databases in the world, and we have 7 million transactions per day, and that are more transactions than the New York stock market, and we have 4 million active users daily. In terms of technology, Betfair was having a huge problem maintaining the 4 different projects that Betfair currently have, because almost no code is shared between those projects. From web projects, we also have iOS, and we had in time Android applications. We have and had a big and monolithic large backend framework implemented in Java, and for front-end we use on our old apps a deprecated front-end framework that is YY, that not even Yahoo that created the framework like it. So this is the current problem that we have. Those are 2 implementations from almost the same thing. This is a football game. I can even say the names, but you see that we have scores, that O2, the time elapsed from the event, the half-time score, the timeline where the goals happen. We have all these, and they are pretty similar, but I guarantee you that almost no code is shared between those apps, and we have another 2 apps that are pretty similar to this, and they also don't share the code. So this is a big issue for Betfair, because we have twice the bugs, twice the implementations. It's horrible. So the big picture, a very simplified version. We have a lot of services implemented in Java for betting, for scores, for whatever, and then we have an aggregation layer implemented in Java. Then we have a backend implemented also in Java that we implement tasks. It's kind of an aggregation layer. That backend transform renders some HTML to the front-end app. It's the first page impression, and then the front-end app uses directly the service for polling updates, for betting transactions, and so on. On the new approach that we are currently changing, the Betfair new architecture, the services are maintained. We don't want to change that, but the aggregation layer, we re-implemented that. It's no longer a big and monolithic Java implementation. We rewrite the framework to be a Node.js application that spawns aggregations as we want, and those aggregations can be used by any of the 4 projects. We have no longer a backend layer. We only have an Angular application that is fed by the aggregation layer and is consumed also directly services, if makes any sense in any case. So our goals on this approach. We want the microservices to be easier to maintain and develop. We have less code in each one of those microservices, and it will be a lot easier to develop and maintain. We avoid the duplication of logic on the back-end and the front-end layer, because, as you may know, the back-end business have a lot of calculations and algorithms, and in most cases we had those logics implemented on back-end for the first page impression, and then when we receive updates for bet prices and so on, we need to recalculate those values, and that was implemented in JavaScript. So we have a lot of logic duplicated, a lot of bugs being replicated in both sides. We will have smaller and faster releases with this process, because we have microservices that only have a specific purpose. And we have a better scaling, because we are getting rid of the processing on the back-end layer, and moving to the front-end, the client-side app. And why Angular helps here? What is the main goal here? Angular has a lot of things that are cool. In my opinion, there are 3 that are key features that without them we couldn't implement this new architecture. Directives are really powerful. As Victor explained a couple of talks later, you could do this with components, with those frameworks. We use Angular directives to implement that. The principle is mostly the same. We have a custom element that is user there. We are sending attributes to that, and it will replace that user for the HTML that we wrote on the template attribute. It's this, no more. We have an app, we have a directive, we can use it. It's pretty simple. Providers. Providers are only services that have a config phase. Sometimes when you want to reuse code, you want to implement your service as abstract as you can. So it could be used by another person or another project. So in a lot of cases, most of our services are providers. So we can have those methods here that are only public on the config phase before the bootstrap the app. So for instance, if we have a service and for different projects the endpoint changes, you can have a set endpoint. If you have different out methods for different blocks of your site, you can have a set method. So this $get awkward annotation will expose a service that is named all service. So then we can have the config phase, the out service provider, that is only the config phase of that service that is implemented here, and then we can, on the controller or another part of the site that is already booted, we can get the method and is set correctly. And if we try to get the set method on the object, it's undefined. It's not exist. It's a pretty cool feature that later we'll understand how it helps us on our project. This was already talked on the talk about Angular 2. Dependency injection will help us to create modules independent between each other. Here on this module, on this controller, I'm using a service A that, for instance, is not implemented in this module. It's implemented in another module. And this is some cool feature that we have here. Some of you from Java, from other language, may think that this is peanuts, but for JavaScript, this for many years it was not. And also, this features for me is not that important like the 3 previous ones, but also important. Two-way data binding that will help us on the views. factory service constants, all the stuff that the MVC frameworks implement, and the config phase and run that we use to configure the providers and other stuff that we want to ensure that is run before the bootstrap app. And testability. It's really important to have reliable code, and if it's not testable, we can't have that. So, how to build? How do we should build our app? If you go to Google and try to search it, will be your first example, and it's not that scalable. Many developers group their files by implementations. So we have all controllers in one folder, all directives, all providers. This is simple, okay, but not if you have 100 controllers or 100 directives. It's a complete mess. So where do you start searching if you have a bug on user? You can't even use the IDE to sneak peek the search. It's horrible. This is a better solution. You can group by relevant code. So if you have users, you can group all the users' code. If you have a company, you can group all the company's code. It's better. And it's the most common way for all of the people out there working on the AngularJS apps. But this leads us to a question. What is a model, and what is our implementation rules for one module? This is the conventions that we at Blip agree on. This is not written in stone yet, but is going there. Code conventions are enforced by company by ESLint rules. We don't want that code review that we have always one guy that says, okay, you need a space there, you can multivar, or you don't want that. You want the build to break if someone makes that rule. And you don't want to waste time for the people sneak peeking your code and doing this. You can do this automatically. Your module must work in a sandbox environment. What does this mean? You want your module to work as independent as you can on your application. So, for instance, if you develop a module, you should be able to run your module with an index.html only with your module, only, no more. This will ease your tests a lot. It will be a lot easier to implement your tests, your unit tests, your functional tests, and it will provide you a simple way to release new modules. If it is a visual component, like a search box or an header or a footer, you should implement a directive. It's the easiest way to provide a component through your module applications. You must follow some ver. For those who don't know, some ver is semantic versioning. It's the x.y.x annotation for major, minor, and patch versions. If you make a breaking change, you bump the major version. If you add a new feature, you bump the minor version. It's a bug fix, you bump the patch version. And like Victor says, also for the components, one component, one repository, nothing else. This way you can semantic versioning your module and on your repository, and it's more easier. So at Betfair we thought, why don't we use modules as vendors? If you start writing your app and you install Bower install, okay. You start installing Angular, Bower install Angular, and so on and so on. Why shouldn't you be able to do that with your modules? Why your modules are any different from your third-party modules? So we try to achieve that with this. We use Bower for now. We are trying to re-implement this with NPM.
But for Bower, we just do this. Popular batch that each one module from our repositories, and we install the 1.x version. Okay, cool. If, for instance, your module that we install have a different version of Angular, it's implemented in 1.3, it's okay. We can resolution the conflict on the resolution object from the Bower. It's easy. All of this is pretty easy, but you need to use an automated system. You need to use Grunt or Gulp or whatever, but you need this because all these tasks will be a complete mess to do manually. And I have a couple things that I think you should never do this on your projects. I think our project is a JavaScript project, but I think this could be applied in any project in any language. You should never manually handle sprites. Never. It's a complete mess working with PSD, exporting to PNG. It's a complete mess. You already have Grunt contrib compass, for instance, or if you want another thing, you can use Glue. Or there is a ton of modules from Grunt and Gulp that does this job and well, and you don't need to worry about it. You don't have, as I said, code reviews about styling conventions. You want to run Gruntify as lint. If the rules are broken, the build don't pass, you can commit. Simple. You don't want to manually handle releases. If you want to bump a version of your module, there is a Grunt task for that. So basically, you don't want to do X because there is a Grunt task for that, or a Gulp. And if you don't, you can implement it. It's not that hard. So, code. Okay, let me try to mirror the displays. Cool. Okay. I created a GitHub project for this, and I have here 2 demos. I'm going to increase this. Okay, everyone can see? I will do one thing, because I think you guys in the back can see, because the heads. Okay, I have here a demo, and I will open this. Okay, this is a demo project that I created, but the structure is pretty the same from our production modules. We have a lot of Grunt tasks. This is only configurations, but you can see the connect, that is the Grunt task that will run our app. These are our slint rules. I'm not saying that any specific rule. This is only the defaults for this demo. These are the injector that I will show you later. Karma for tests. Watch to developing while I write the code. The pages automatically refresh. And WiredApp to inject our dependency tree correctly on the HTML. So, HTML. Do you see these lines of HTML? I wrote none of it. This is generated code from the injector tasks. These are injected by this code injected by injector, and this is from this is from the WiredApp, and the code below is from the injector. This is included by a specific order, and WiredApp knows that Angular must be included before Angular route, and my module is included after that, and so on and so on. I don't need to know this. WiredApp handles this for me. Same for injector. These are the scripts included in my app. I don't need anything to manage this. It's included. So this is a sandbox. It's what I call a sandbox environment. I created a fake app that injects my dependency, my module dependency, that is DevFest user, and bootstrap it just below. I will show you the code. This is my module. It's empty. It's only a module with 0 dependencies. But we have a provider. That is a user service. So I can set the username for this user on the config phase. I have a directive. Just like the previous example. It's a template that writes my name on a B tag. And I have a controller that only sets the user that my service retrieve for the scope of my view. So this is the case. On my config phase I set the username to Carneiro and then bootstrap my app. And here I have the directive that I created before. So I should be able to yay! Whoa! Let me inspect that. Jesus. That's fine. No console. Okay, you can see here my HTML, the scripts, and so on. And here you have the directive replaced for my HTML that I set before, and my name is there. So, for instance, if I go to the code and set username different here, it changed. Cool. So I have a module. It's working on Sandbox. It have no dependencies or whatsoever. Cool. What if I want to use this module on another application? Okay, my application is no different from any other module. It also have grant tasks. It could be gulp or whatever. It also have a source and scripts and so on. It has styles. It has everything. And the only thing that I need to do is this. On my module, I include my user module. Here I am using a dir path, but this could be anything like this. Git at GitHub, whatever, blah. You get the point. And so, for a production environment, you probably will have something like this. Any module included like this. And those modules will be pointing at one version. You want to install your version at 1.x and believe that anyone won't break your build because forgot the breaking change. And if I bump this version, if you can see, we have a lot of John Does. Why? Because here I'm including my application.js and including 6 users. Where the hell he configured the John Doe? I can use my app, a new app that I'm created, and then on the config phase of my app, I can configure the other app, other service. It's cool. So if one of you want to use my service and don't want John Doe, want anything else, you can use it. You can use it on the config phase, configure the user provider, and use it. Fine. And here is the same. the HTML is exactly the same. Let me... Okay, this is pretty cool, but we have to deploy our code to production. On the old approach, what was done was every push to master triggers a new build. We use Jenkins, you can use Travis or whatever you like. You use a continuous integration tool. For every push we made, we run 3 phases. The build phase, we run unit tests, lint tests, and we generate an RPM to deploy on other environments. Then, with that RPM, I deploy on a dev environment against mocked data, and then on a production-ready environment against the production services. These are the numbers that I took from one of those 4 projects, the biggest one, and we have a lot of unit tests that run in 3 minutes, not that much, but the other tests combined, we have 35 minutes. So, on the best case, if none of these steps fail and we need to correct, we have a build time until it's ready for release of 40 minutes or more. And you may think 45 minutes to a production ready is not that much, but it is. When you have 10, 20, 100 teams working on a project, you need to be as fast as hell, because other persons want to push also. They have their own sprints, they need to release their code, and they don't want to be stuck by a red pipeline. So, why this new approach is this project? Each one of the modules have its own pipeline. So, instead of having 2,000 unit tests, I will have only 20, 30, whatever, the unit tests for that one module. And when someone pushes the code, it pushes to a new, that module only, and triggers the build on that module only. So, this process currently is done in under 1 minute. So if one team is working this module and another team is working on another module, it runs in 1 minute. Cool. So we are using some Ver. If we trust some Ver, if you see this new builds, we have 4 modules. All the 4 modules passes the build. Unit tests, functional tests, whatever, and all the bumped versions are minor or patch. So we can use for sure these versions. If no one made an error bumping the version and made an unwanted breaking change, this should be ready for production. No one's need to manually test this. We can have an automatic release. This is ready for release, no matter what. What happens if someone bumps the version and it's a breaking change? We need to manually test this. We need to change the bower JSON to the correct version. We need to test it. We need to check if that specific breaking change will affect our module or not. And then test your app, fix potential integration bugs, and bump the version. So, with this new approach, our continuous integration decreases incredibly our build times. We can have much faster releases, and releases are less stressful. If we don't have breaking changes in any of our modules, it should be a painless release. And if we, for instance, release a module that has a bug that shouldn't be there, we can hold back one module and one module only. If 10 teams are working on modules, and one module is bugged, we can roll back that one module only, and the team from the other teams, the work from the other teams will be on production. And it's the end. The code for this presentation is somewhere on my GitHub. You can check that. And if someone has questions, please say it now.
Did you take a look to Yeoman? It's a scaffolding for AngularJS, and it has most of these tools that you already mentioned included. And it's just, if people want to try this, I think that Yeoman, it's the best way to do it.
It is the best way. When you have that many modules, you'll duplicate a lot of code. Your grand task will be all the same for all your modules. So you need to have Yeoman. So we have a ng module to create our modules. GDG. And select which type of module we have, and it will create, it will install, run tests, and so on and so on. Yes.
Just because you are missing this.
Yeah.
Don't you use any type of lazy loading? You just load all the modules?
Currently, we are not using lazy loading. It's a wanted feature for the.
Okay. Isn't that too heavy to load everything?
Currently not, because we are migrating our applications, and the migrated part is not that large, and we don't have this issue yet, but we will have. No more questions? Can we go home? Thank you.
So, just 5 more minutes, and I promise you I'll let you go home. Just a quick glimpse into the future of what we're building here, what we want to do with the GDG and DevFest and all things. On the next couple of weeks, not the following because we're gonna die on the next days, but somewhere in the future, that's better. We're gonna start talking with our sponsors and with whoever here wants to speak with us to plan the next events.